Down beneath the ground, as MCGQ likes to say. And my special guest is here in the building. And it's been a minute in the making. We've been having a conversation for a while to get him up in the building. And in the meantime, he's been busy, he's been traveling globally, I can say that, internationally, doing this thing, spreading the sound. And it's, of course, the one like IYRE. Welcome along to KOOL FM.
Biggest props for having me, brother.
It is a pleasure, man. We've been talking and trying to be making this happen for a while, and you've been brought to my attention for a long while, and I've got a big up sister, Pixis,
yes.
Marissa, for the introduction, and I'm going to take it back to a project that you were heavily involved in. I'm talking about Floodlight.
Yes.
And that was kind of my introduction to you, kind of talking to each other. I've had your music and kind of was interested in an artist, especially coming from South India and the Indian subcontinent, and I'm so proud to say that I see another brown brother doing his thing right now, and it might be controversial to some people, but for me it's a big thing, it's a big thing. So welcome, bro, proud of you, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
And let's take it back. IYRE, like, just popped up on the scene all of a sudden. You're here, there, you're everywhere, getting noticed, doing some big shows. But I really want to take it back to Sri Lanka. I want to talk back to Colombo. Is that where you're originally from, or are you just living in Colombo?
I'm originally from Colombo. So born and bred in Colombo, been there ever since.
Yeah.
And I studied in Colombo as well. Got my musical influences from my school, which is Wesley College in Colombo.
So is that what you did? Did you do music at college, or was?
Yes. I was heavily inspired by my school, Wesley College.
Because I know you was in a band. Was that at college? Yes. Was that like a college band?
That was after.
Was that after?
That was
so
quite afterwards, actually.
All right, so let's start there. Let's start with the influence. Let's start with the school influence.
Mostly towards grade 6, 7, when I was about 14, 15 years old, we were getting influenced by newer genres of music, like new metal to punk rock. And we started listening to bands like Green Day, Linkin Park, System of a Down, all the usual suspects. All the usual suspects, and that's probably where my love for music gradually started growing. And then I was a part of the college band as well. I led the band for about 3 years as well, the brass band.
Oh, sick. So what was your instrument?
I started with clarinets and then moved to percussion, and then I played almost all the percussion instruments which were available. So yeah.
So playing traditional Western music,
yes.
Or
traditional Western music.
Did you study Asian scales as well?
I studied traditional Western music as well for my advanced levels, and as concurrently into performance aspects of it as well. Like I was studying keyboards.
Yeah. So did you use any of the kind of Indian scale?
I
stuff?
did. I'm heavily influenced by the sounds of the subcontinent as well, because my father is heavily inspired by South Asian music, and
was he involved in music as well?
Exactly. So he was constantly playing music.
Good influence. At
home as well, and then he went to Saudi, and when he came back, he had a few cassettes with him, and one of the cassettes was a record from Colonial Cousins.
Right, okay.
That's probably where
the influences
come from. And then at the same time, Bhati and Santosh from Sri Lanka were making waves in the South Asian continent as well, and we used to memorize songs from their records, and then we used to play them at classrooms while banging on desks.
Pen and desk.
Exactly. So that used to be the humble beginnings, and then towards when I entered university, one of my friends sent me a record. It was a collaboration album between Korn and Skrillex. Which was
I actually remember that Korn Skrillex collab.
Exactly. So I think it was called The Path of Totality. And when I heard it, I was immediately blown away by how seamlessly he was able to merge electronic music with metal music. And that's how I got inspired. And then
that was when you started picking up kind of electronic music?
2012.
So that's where iClown so a lot of people don't realise that your kind of beginnings in the electronic kind of findings was around the dubstep era.
Yeah. I started with dubstep. Yeah, I started making dubstep, and that's basically how I entered into the electronic music scene, inspired by Skrillex. And then
Sick.
towards 2014, 15, I was listening to Knife Party.
Yeah, which is
And-
a pendulum for those that
Exactly,
don't know.
so-
And crossing the guitar, drum and bass spectrum as
Exactly.
well.
And like records like Centipede, for instance.
Yeah.
And then I was digging around who these guys were, and then Rob and Gareth, and
Yeah.
then I searched online, and then Pendulum popped in.
Popped up.
And at
You
the
were
same
like,
time, exactly, at the same time, I was looking for genres which are similar to dubstep as well, because I was like getting tired of like making the same thing. I was trying to branch out, and then Pendulum was there, and then I searched on YouTube, and then Watercolor was the first song that I heard, the first ever drum.
You know, it's so interesting that you've got this kind of massively diverse musical background, you know, with the metal and the rock and the, you know, the classical and the clarinets and the woodwind and the percussion. And yet your music, like the stuff that I've known you for, is so soulful and so groovy and so vibesy. It's like, I would have expected you to make more harder stuff. I think that's still coming.
I think it's coming.
I think it's coming.
It's
Yeah,
coming,
I think it's
actually.
coming.
Yeah.
But so kind of what 2012 was first kind of door on Fruity Loops or
Yeah, FL Studio was, I'm still using FL.
Yeah.
And I started learning off YouTube, and then towards 2017-18 when the pandemic hit, I kind of felt as if my musical career was kind of like stuck.
Yeah.
And I wanted so bad to be a part of the UK
But
scene.
what is the home community like? Is there a home scene? Is there a home electronic scene, or is it really quite small in Sri Lanka?
There's an electronic music scene for sure, for genres which are kind of like house and techno based. But in terms of drum and bass, breakbeat, and like genres which are hardcore, they're still not
big.
Yeah, it's still not big. It's still gradually picking up. But with the attention that I'm getting, people are realizing that the genre is actually enjoyable. And one thing that we noticed, like my wife and me and my management noticed, was the fact that Sri Lankans don't necessarily understand how to move to it. And we've been traveling down south, and we've been playing shows non-stop, and then I realized that people are actually trying to get into it, and they're growing with the music. It's just that they're learning
the step and the nod.
Exactly.
So let's take it kind of fast forward. So playing around, iClown, dubstepping, and then how did your first drum and bass release? How did you find a place? Obviously, I know a lot of things in the background, but tell the people, how did you get your first release to someone in the UK? Because you said, you know, you wanted to be part of the scene, and how did you first get your first demo across?
Actually, there's a really wholesome story behind this as well. I met a fellow producer, a friend actually now, called Human Nature. He's from Portugal.
Yes, big up Human Nature.
And
I played one of his remixes earlier.
Exactly. So he has this platform called EMCEE Academy, and we had a chat, and he got in touch with me, and I kind of got under his wing, and he taught me like basics in terms of like how the business works and how to navigate myself in the UK scene.
Big up Human Nature, man.
Big ups, much love.
Yes, 100%.
And then I started researching in terms of where my sound would directly makes sense, and Goldfat was one of the labels that came into my radar. Specifically because of the release Winslow did with them.
Yeah.
And I kind of immediately felt that my music would definitely translate.
Yeah.
And then I sent a demo, and it took quite a lot of time for them to get back to me. I think it was about.
Yeah, apologies. Us labels do take a while in getting back to demos.
They took about 3 months.
Yeah.
But they got in touch with me.
Fantastic.
And the first song that I sent was called The River. And Grant, who thought the release was great, obviously put in touch with me with Pixies. That's how I
was the
got to know
combination
Marisa.
Right.
My big sister.
Yeah.
And then it got released on Headspace, but at the same time I had another tune.
That's right.
And I immediately told Grant, look here, I mean, I have one more tune. Would you be interested in having a listen to it? And that tune was Fragments.
Right.
And Fragments got released on Golfat as my debut release, and then it got featured on UKF.
That's right.
And UKF did like a profile on me, and everything started snowballing.
The snowball started from there. So let's, like, you know, the journey's been amazing. So over the past couple of weeks, you've been travelling, you and your wife been travelling around, and I've seen amazing photos. You've been doing some of what I call the British cultural visits. You've been Stonehenge and Bath, you've been doing some of the classic stuff, but also you've been travelling abroad. You've been Liquidity, you were just there recently with Linguistics. How was that set? That looked amazing on the online.
That was probably one of the biggest crowds I've ever played in front of, and the crowd was really wholesome. They were vibing,
responsive, so I was watching
around. It was very, very intense, but at the same time the view from up here was very wholesome, like looking at like thousands of people vibing to music. So it was very,
did you get out to Croatia for hospitality as well?
Yes.
How was that? Did you enjoy that?
Best times ever.
Yeah, vibes, little venue, big up Josh and
the Solvent gang. We had a boat party, and
I saw the boat party. That
exactly. We were supposed to play like individual sets, but then again everybody jumped in and did a massive back-to-back. Skelalere, myself, Either Wood, and Vishanobi.
How does it feel to be amongst your peers, and you know, at this point? And what I can say is, it's been a long time in the making, but all of a sudden, since the snowball, and as I said, it's just amazing to see you featured on some amazing festivals right across the international spectrum. So how does that feel? How does the ascension and the kind of the quickness of it feel? Because, you know, I mentioned it in a text. You know, I know it all looks fantastic from this side, but as a person, I'm glad you've got a support crew, and your wife's your support crew with you. But if you could imagine doing it on your own, you know, how...
It would have been nerve-wracking. I mean, if it weren't for like Vimanti, my wife, and then my manager Leah, who's in Sri Lanka, she should be flying in, to be honest, very soon.
Good.
But if it weren't for those two, those guys are my team too. So it takes a lot of effort for us to come to EU and the UK from Sri Lanka, because there's like little things from like currency depreciation to everything is basically a struggle for us to make this far. So I'm really grateful that I have the support from my wife and my manager.
I've seen it from day one, man. I've seen, like, you know, you're managing to move, and wherever you go, you know, there's always some sort of family accepting you here and there and bringing you in. So I'm glad you're not kind of lost in the wilderness, as they say. But let's fast forward. What's forthcoming from you? Like, you know, there's a bag of music already, you know, in production, as we spoke about. Not much time to record as you're on the road. Gonna hit back to home soon in August.
Yes, in August after Let It Roll. So we have Let It Roll on 2nd to 5th, and then on 8th we're flying back
home.
And once we fly back, we're gonna settle down, and then I'm gonna finish the tunes.
And look at everything that's just gone on.
Exactly. And look at the videos, make some content, post online.
Excellent. But you've been busy. I've been seeing you've been doing content stuff.
Yes. I've been editing on the road as well. Like I edited for Hospitality and then Liquidity as well. So I've been busy on the road, but hopefully when I'm back home...
You know what, me and you could chat for hours on this, but I brought you in so they could hear, you know, a lot of people tune into my show and kind of always hear the next generation of artists. You've already been up here, people already know what you're doing, but I'd love for you to come on and play some music for our audience today. So I'm going to start off with an old tune by the infamous DJ Ron, a track called Little Man. This one, the Jube one, I was going to play that earlier. I'm going to play this now. And what we'll do is we'll catch him back at the end of the show just to say goodbye and his big ups. But yeah, quick conversation with